When you're scrolling Netflix for half an hour and you haven't worked out what you want to watch, chances are you're experiencing decision fatigue.
And every day we're making thousands of decisions, more than we ever have before, from what to eat for breakfast to whether to text someone back. But the more decisions we make, the poorer we actually get at making them.
Exactly. Psychologists call this decision fatigue. This drains our willpower, clouds our judgment, and we make poorer decisions as the day goes on.
So today we're going to dive into the science behind decisions and talk about the strategies that can bring our brains back from the brink of our decision threshold. The information in this podcast is for general informational and educational purposes only. Nothing we say should be taken as individualized advice. If anything you hear brings up concerns for you, we strongly encourage you to speak with your GP, psychologist, or another qualified health professional.
We would like to acknowledge and pay our respects to the traditional owners of the unceded lands of the Kulin Nation, on which this podcast is recorded. We acknowledge their rich history and honour the ongoing connection to land, waters, culture, and community.
Welcome to This Might Help, a podcast bridging the gap between evidence-based psychology research and your everyday life.
We're your hosts, Dr. Kira Hart.
And I'm Dr. Lauren Rossetti, and we are two Australian psychologists.
Today we're talking all about making decisions, particularly around decision fatigue and what makes us so indecisive.
Yeah, lots of things.
So, yeah, story of my life. But before we get started, as always, Lauren, can you please tell me your wellbeing win and wobble of the week?
Yes, okay. I had to think about these a little bit, but my well-being win is very much related to the podcast this week. It's a wholesome podcast-related win, and it is that on the back of our last episode on gratitude, I got fully back into my gratitude journaling at night and writing down 3 things at the end of every day.
How wonderful.
Yeah, so I used to do that a long time ago. I think I mentioned in the last episode, and then I'd kind of got out of the habit. But the last week or so, I've consistently done it pretty much every day.
Nice.
And it's made me I've seen
more grateful.
but it's made the actual shifts we talk about that are backed by the evidence.
Yeah.
Surprise, surprise. So when I did it, I was noticing more of the things that I was grateful for each day.
Aww.
Just you feel a little bit of that shift, you know,
Right.
huge shift, but all the more good things happening.
Yeah.
So that's my well-being win.
Yeah.
And my well-being wobble is something that I've also mentioned in the past. But again, it's coming around to another book club.
Yeah.
And I've still not finished the last few books or started the next one. I've just been so busy with work, kind of, out of control with busyness. And that is definitely a bit of a well-being wobble. But it has also meant that I, again, am probably going to book club with the book not
Unread.
finished.
Yes.
Yeah, or I might need to do a bit of a speed reading situation. But
Audio book it?
Yeah.
Listen to it on double time? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's a shame if you've already paid for the book.
Yeah. So that's my well-being win and wobble. How about you, Kira?
I'm going to start with my wellbeing wobble of the week.
Changing it up.
Mixing it up.
11. Different direction.
My wellbeing wobble, I had the same one a few weeks ago, and it just speaks to how bad my immune system is. But again, I've been unwell and under the weather and just a terrible cold this week. But my wellbeing wobble has been because I've been ill. I haven't been able to exercise or to socialize.
Yeah.
And those things I love doing and really boost my mental health. So that's been just a really blur week, not being able to exercise and catch up with friends. My wellbeing win is that last night I had a 14-hour sleep. So I got home from work, hopped into bed at 5:30 in my work outfit with the intention of just having a half an hour nap because we were having friends over. And then I woke up at 8 p.m. All the friends, it was a bit of a party downstairs, but I was not in a state to go and socialize.
Yeah.
So I got out of bed, brushed my teeth, put on my pajamas, hopped back into bed and slept for another 11 hours.
Wow.
So that was my well-being win. Actually feeling refreshed today was a lovely feeling in the morning.
Yeah, you're rejuvenated
Yes.
now. Yeah, ready to go. It sounds like your body needed it.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
definitely did.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's a lovely win and
Not so great
that's a
wobble.
lovely wobble, but you've got the sleep from it.
Yeah.
That's good. Okay, so today we are talking all about making decisions.
Yes.
And particularly around, like you said, decision fatigue and why it's become so hard also to make decisions. Like, why are we so indecisive nowadays?
Yeah.
I definitely have this
I
problem.
am so bad.
So we'll have lots of personal things to talk about.
Personal takeaways from this episode are much needed.
Yeah. So there are, I guess, an element of this is that there's so many decisions now that we have to make every day. There are more options than ever. There's just, I guess, part of that feels good. There's so many things we can pick from. We have so many options out there. There's so many things that we can do. But on the other hand, that means there's just so many decisions to make every day.
Yeah.
And that builds up. So I guess there's a couple of layers to that. There's these bigger decisions that we have to make, and we have so many more of them too. What do we want to do for work? And then once we've figured out what we want to do for work, how do we get to work, and what city do we want to work in? And even things like, where do we want to live?
Yeah.
And then the daily decisions, like at a lower level, about like, what do you wear for work to work?
Yeah.
Every day, if you have the choice. What do you eat for breakfast and lunch and dinner? And, like, what do you do
After work.
Yes. Like, what
Sleep.
do you watch? What type of exercise do you do? Which grocery store do you go to? Blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
Like, there's just so many decisions.
That's honestly a tough one. Like, what grocery store do I go to? I'm like, Coles Local, Aldi, The Market, Woolies. Like, you have lots of options.
Yeah.
And maybe we're just lucky. We live in an area where there are lots of options, but, lots of options make for decision fatigue.
They
So
make for decision fatigue. Absolutely.
And what we mean by decision fatigue is the psychological phenomenon where making repeated decisions over time, it depletes our cognitive resources. So it reduces our ability to sustain willpower or persistence and effective self-control.
Yeah. So decision fatigue is essentially where you're making so many decisions every day that it becomes more and more fatiguing.
Yes.
Or harder and harder and harder to then make decisions because we're making so many every day. But also, it's not just, I guess, making it harder to make decisions, but that our brains become like tired and fatigued, and we lose that cognitive energy to do things because our energy in our brain has just been taken up by making decisions all day. Yeah. So we've got like a resource of of energy that our brains can use. And even when we talked about things like focus, all different things use our brain's energy in the day, and decisions are one part of that. And so when there's so many, we end up with decision fatigue.
It's tiresome. Exactly.
There's research showing that the number of decisions, or as the number of decisions increase, we become more likely to feel distressed or give up more easily or struggle with endurance on tasks. So that's also based in the research, in that when we're making more decisions, or the more decisions we have to make, the harder it becomes to make good decisions.
Exactly. And when we were prepping for this episode, we came across this research that highlighted how many people seem to have like a daily threshold for the number of decisions they can make. And past this point, it can lead to cognitive exhaustion.
Yeah, another great TED Ed video. We love them.
Shout out.
And in that video too, they talk about this study which uses an example of judges making decisions about parole.
Yeah.
So these judges were kind of deciding whether or not these people were allowed to get parole, and it looked at factors that impacted their decision making, and one of them was I guess in the afternoon, the judges were less likely to grant parole because they were more exhausted by all these decisions that they'd been making all day. They were much more likely to grant parole earlier in the day when their brains were more fresh, or kind of just after a break, like if they, had lunch,
Had a
and
snack break.
and then come back.
Yeah.
But they were, more depleted in the afternoon, more mentally fatigued by making these decisions that are very hard to make. And so then they were more likely to default to the easier choice, which was denying parole in these examples. So you can see that even, I guess, as we get more fatigued and we reach that point of decision fatigue, that you can be more impulsive in the decisions you make. And like you said, we have this then threshold that we can end up reaching.
Yeah. So we know that
The decision-making
threshold will be reached for people at different times, depending on the number of decisions that they have to make.
Yeah.
Also, the complexity of the decisions and whether they are new decisions that they don't typically make. So whether it requires more thought and more cognitive resources than like a quick decision that you kind of make or you're used to making.
So there's the frequency if you're making lots and lots and lots of those little decisions every day. So even just in the fact that our lives are so busy and there are a lot more things to decide.
Yeah.
But then if you've got those complex decisions that pop up, like where do you want to live? Like that's a really complex decision.
Yes.
If you've got those happening at one point in time, you're more likely to reach that decision threshold because that's really, a cognitively demanding decision.
Yeah.
And then when those new decisions pop up, like I think they use one example of if your car has broken down and then suddenly you've got to make a decision quickly, like you've got to find a new car or something like that. That's a new decision that's really effortful.
Yeah.
And so then you'll reach your decision making threshold quicker.
Yeah. I would just like to give a bit of a shout out to RSCV. My housemate the other day at 8 a.m. went to her car and realized that it wasn't starting. So she was like, I'm going to be late to work, messaged her manager being like, expect to see me at midday.
Yeah.
Called RSCV and they were there within 10 minutes.
Wow.
So she got to work on time.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a good decision.
I know. Great decision by her.
What? It was in the morning, so she was more primed to make that good decision.
Yes. So sorry, circling back to today's episode, it's not just about how many decisions we have to make, but also how many choices there are for every decision, i.e., how many car insurance companies do I have to contact? Is it just RACV or RACV and Amy? I don't know if they're insurance. I don't know.
So exactly, there are so many options to pick from. And there are, so I guess we can look at it in a couple of ways. There are decisions that we make every day. So these are those things you're deciding, like what to eat for breakfast, what to wear to work, how you're going to get to work. But then within the decisions, there are now so many choices to pick from.
Yes.
So it's not just that there's decisions all day long. It's that within every decision, you have, just hundreds of choices to make. We've been talking about the examples, lots of examples of this, but like you go to the supermarket and there are just so many options for every single thing. So it's not just like, oh, what am I going to cook? It's, one of the ingredients is peanut butter. And then you go to the peanut butter aisle and there's, 17 different types of peanut butter.
Yes, so many different brands.
Yeah.
Crunchy, smooth.
So many choices. And then even in things like thinking about, going somewhere new, like if I go to I'm on holiday, say, and I need to pick a restaurant, there are so many options, choices to go to, and you just get caught up in making the decision because there's so many choices to pick from.
I always struggle with ordering at a restaurant when there's like a menu that has so many different yummy items that I want to taste or that I want to eat. I always get really overwhelmed and make a friend or make someone else pick for me
Yeah.
because I can't choose. Like I don't know if I want the eggs poached or scrambled or I want both, but yeah, lots of decisions to be made.
Yes, and lots of choices. I think we were talking about Uber Eats.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And having just so many options.
Good options.
And it makes it really hard to pick.
Yeah.
So it's not just then making the decision, but also this fear of making the wrong decision when we have so many choices. And this concept around choices and this increase in choices that we have is really pioneered by Barry Schwartz, who's an American professor and psychologist. And he wrote the book, The Paradox of Choice, and has this amazing TEDx talk video presentation.
TEDx, is that like a X-rated TED Ed video?
Pull your brain together, Kira.
I meant to say TED Ed.
No, because TED Ed is the little educational ones that we use, and then TEDx is like the long form presentation.
Okay, sorry, take back what I just said.
No, well, that's okay. I'm just bringing your brain back in to us. Keep it PG. Okay.
But this video, it's like 18 years old.
Yeah,
but more relevant than ever.
Yeah, it is amazing. We'll put it in the show notes because it is just such a good watch. And I couldn't believe when I was listening to it, I was like, this is all really relevant. I think the thing that, prompted my brain to think this is not modern is because he was talking about going into like a audio visual store to get like speaker systems and stuff. And I was like, yeah, this is from a few years ago. But and they were talking about kind of mobile phones, but like the older versions.
Yeah, I'd say there's probably fewer choices of phones or fewer popular choices of phones.
Yes. So this was 18 years ago, but the stuff that Barry Schwartz was talking about then and that is within his book, The Paradox of Choice, is, like you said, so much more relevant now than before. And is just, there's lots of good stuff in here.
Yeah, so some of his key takeaways are that too much choice can be overwhelming, which we've already discussed. But whilst we might assume that more choices leads to greater freedom and greater happiness, actually having excessive choices can often lead to stress or pressure and paralysis in some cases, like not being able to make a choice, or even dissatisfaction when you kind of make a choice and then you might experience regret about it.
Absolutely.
And that's another one. So the opportunity cost increases regret. So the more alternatives we have available, the more we might dwell on what we might have missed or may not be satisfied with the option we went with and kind of like look back and be like, oh, I really should have ordered the scrambled eggs rather than the poached. Like they look so much better, for example. And you're not as satisfied with the choice you made.
Yes, I totally relate to that because even I do this with things like picking the coffee shop I'm going to go to in a place. Like, and if I'm really familiar with the area, it's kind of slightly better, not completely removed. But if I'm going somewhere and I'm like, oh yeah, where am I going to go and get coffee? I will dwell on the option that I'm trying to pick. And then even once I've made that decision, I'll be thinking, oh, is the other cafe better? Like, would it be the best coffee for something as slow as coffee?
Yeah.
Too many choices. Anyway, but Barry Schwartz says this great thing about when there are so many options, it's easy to imagine that you could have made a different choice that would have been better. Yeah, so we fall into this trap when there are all of these choices that we have that we will end up thinking, if I made a different choice, it would have been better. Whereas he speaks a lot about in this video too and within his research that there used to be far fewer choices, and so that took away the option of imagining another possibility.
Yeah.
Like you then don't dwell on, was the other one better because maybe there wasn't another choice.
Yes.
And yeah, he talks about like picking out jeans, and
Yeah.
there didn't used to be so many different cuts and shapes and styles.
Yeah.
And so even if you had a pair of jeans and they weren't the best pair of jeans, like
Yeah.
maybe the fit wasn't great, it didn't matter because there weren't all these other choices.
Yes.
Whereas now we have all of these different shapes and cuts and styles. So even if you find a pair of jeans that fit really well and feel really good, you might feel dissatisfied because they're not perfect.
Yes, definitely.
Too many choices.
Yeah.
We also see that this choice overload leads to decision paralysis.
Yeah.
So when we're faced with too many options or too many choices to pick from, we often delay making the decision or we avoid making the decision entirely.
Yes.
This happens with picking a movie or something to watch. I'm sure everyone listening has experienced this, but like you sit down, yeah, we're going to watch a movie, we're going to watch a show,
Yeah.
and then you waste hours, like maybe an hour's gone by, and
Yeah.
you've just been thinking about or trying to pick which movie to watch. You could have watched half of a movie already.
Yes, exactly. And you just spend that time like scrolling Netflix or Stan, trying to like be like, oh, is this movie going to be more entertaining? Is this one going to be funnier?
Yeah.
What's the reviews on this one like?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And isn't that so funny? Because it comes back to like the fear that what you pick you won't enjoy.
Yeah.
But then what's the risk of just picking the movie and starting it? And if it's not that good, you just stop watching it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't. And this is, that's something that I do. I'd sit there and think, oh, like with the coffee shop, dwell over like making the decision.
Yeah.
Is it going to be the right one? Is it going to be the best one?
Yeah.
But there's not that much risk of just putting on the show or movie.
Watching or half watching a bad movie.
Yeah, and seeing how it goes.
Yeah.
and turning it off if it's not that good. Like you might spend that whole point of your night just trying to choose the movie rather than watching anything.
Yeah. No, so true. We know that decision fatigue is a big thing that we both struggle with, as we're sure many other people do as well.
Yeah.
But there's also, luckily, lots of ways that we can help combat decision fatigue and our indecisiveness.
Yeah.
One of those ways is through reducing decisions where possible and automating our choices. So day to day, this might look like picking what we wear the night before, or there's the famous example of Steve Jobs, who always wore the same thing to work and had his uniform of jeans and like the black turtleneck sweater and kind of removed that thought process of, okay, what am I gonna wear today? Is it weather appropriate, etc.
Yeah.
Another example might be like using a GPS to help. Well, I suppose everyone uses a GPS nowadays anyway to help navigate, but not even having to think about where am I going? How do I arrive at my destination?
Yeah.
Just like plugging it in and following the route.
Yeah. I do the thing of having like the same, I guess, automating my food choices for the week. So I will like plan my meal prep on the weekend, cook something for lunch.
Yeah.
And then that's just, I'm having the same thing every day. But I'll also do it for breakfast, which I'm laughing because you're looking at me like that's crazy.
I could not do that with food. I appreciate that would remove a lot of decisions out of your daily routine and lots of like thought process. But the idea of having the same thing for like lunch and dinner on multiple days in a row, I just don't know. I would get so bored.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
For me, it's like just pick the one thing. I wake up. Otherwise, I would like probably not do it, or I'd make poorer decisions.
Yeah.
Whereas automating that for me, it just means I don't default to like the easy decision of, I don't know, like buying something unhealthy that I don't really want, or like wasting the money on food. I would default to that easy decision rather than cooking something each day. So that's something that I automate so that it isn't something I have to think about.
You are very strong and have lots of willpower for doing that. Another concept is having your choices streamlined. So, for example, having that clear meal prep or having a clear grocery list. So when you walk into Woolies, you know exactly what you're looking for, and you're not standing in the aisle trying to pick, oh, what do I want for dinner and what ingredients do I want to buy? You already have it pre-planned, and therefore less decisions made in the moment.
Yeah, ready to go.
Yeah.
The element of routines as well, or having a daily routine, I think is a really important and probably undervalued thing
Yes.
for making decisions,
Yeah.
because I think routines, because there's something you do every day or you put that
Yeah.
routine in place, it just means all of those less important tasks go on autopilot.
Yeah.
So like you're not, thinking about when in the day you're going to exercise or what time you're waking up and all of
Yeah.
that thing, like all of those things every day. And I think we've already talked about some of the routine things we do, like even that, I kind of most Sundays will then do that cooking
Yeah.
that we won't put in your daily routine, Kira, because you would hate it. But on a Sunday, I'll do that. And that's
Yeah.
kind of a regular thing that's part of my routine. So then the decision around food is taken away during
Yeah.
the week. So that's like one less decision to make. Or
Yeah.
I will try, like I have kind of put exercise into my routine for the week. So it's not a decision. Like I don't wake up each day and think, when am I going to exercise today?
Yeah.
Or like what type of exercise I'm going to do. It's kind of put within a routine for my week.
Yeah. Another way to help overcome decision fatigue is being able to delegate decisions. And when I say this, I don't mean just like taking a step back and being like, okay, everyone else make my decisions for me. But allowing other people to kind of like put their hand up and make decisions where it's appropriate. For example, if you and a group of friends are going out for dinner, you don't always have to be the one leading the charge and picking the restaurant, like letting other people chime in and make decisions about where to go for lunch or dinner. Or at work, depending on kind of like your position at work, it might be appropriate to let other people take more like leadership and make decisions, and definitely not micromanaging other people's decisions as well.
Yeah. And this, I think, if you're particularly, that type A personality that does like to have control over
Yeah.
things, then that can be hard. I'm just thinking about me in some of these scenarios. And giving other people the rein on some of those decisions means that you just can like sit back and relax sometimes.
Yeah.
Especially if you find that you always are trying or always making those decisions.
Yeah.
Just giving your brain a bit of a break.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know you've talked of, we've talked about this, like if somebody orders for you, or like
Yes.
you were saying before, with like picking the option at breakfast,
Yes.
that someone else making that decision, it makes
Yes.
it a lot easier.
Or sometimes just flip a coin.
Yeah.
Let fate decide for you rather than mulling 10 minutes over like option A or option B.
Yeah. I've
Sometimes.
seen those things on even something like with movies that we're
Yeah.
talking about. There's this spinning wheel thing.
Yep.
I can't remember what the app is, but essentially like this is clearly such a problem in so many people's lives that there are now all of these resources to like cut to the chase to make decisions.
Wow.
And you can put things in, like you can put movie options. Like
Yeah.
say you and someone you're watching something with, you've each picked like 3 things, and then it's just spinning the wheel and whatever it lands on is what you're going to watch.
Love that.
Decision made.
Yeah.
Like no thinking about it. It's kind of, I guess what that speaks to is what Barry Schwartz was saying around this regret with decisions, because if you palm off the choice
Yeah.
either to a friend, another person, or
The spinning wheel.
the spinning wheel,
Yeah.
the power of life is making the choice,
Yeah.
then that kind of removes it from your personal, like you personally having made the quote wrong choice
Yeah.
or the wrong decision. Instead it's, oh well, it was picked by that and so I'm going to go with it, or my friend chose and so I'm going to eat it, and this is, it's removing it slightly from yourself, and then I guess has less hold on being like regretting the choice
Yes.
once you've made it. So
That's so helpful.
even those little tips about using the spin the wheel, or sometimes, even doing things like you're picking something on Uber Eats and it's let's just pick two like types of food. Like, you know, as in you're going to pick a burgers or pasta, right?
Okay.
And then like
And you're
narrowing
having
it
both
down.
for dinner? So I was not following.
So, all right, let's take a wheel back. Let's just pedal a bit and start again. So if you're on Uber Eats,
Yeah.
okay,
And there's
with me.
endless options.
There's endless options. So there's so many cuisines to choose from.
Yes.
Like narrow it down. So just pick like we're gonna choose a burgers or pasta. Like that's what we're choosing, and then you're narrowing the choices.
Yes.
So it's like putting external limits on the number of choices you have, rather than leaving like you've got every choice to pick from in the world. Put boundaries on the choices that you can choose from, and then that makes it easier to make the decision.
Yes. So to clarify, we're not having burgers and pasta for dinner. We're putting boundaries around our viewing options on Uber Eats to Italian and burger places.
Yeah, exactly. But also, if you want burgers and pasta,
go ahead.
Yeah, you do that, Kira. You know, you don't limit yourself. But, however, limiting choices is a strategy to improve our ability to make decisions and lessen decision fatigue.
What about those hard decisions?
Yeah, hard decisions are hard. And with more complex decisions, I guess another strategy with this is that it's often easier to offer advice. So, you know, if you're making a really hard decision, and you'll notice this when you're talking with friends or family or colleagues, if someone's making a really hard decision, it's often easier for us to give them advice on how to make that decision rather than when it's you personally making that hard decision.
Yes.
Yeah. So it would be easier for me to turn around and say, oh, this is where you should live and the type of thing you should do. But when you've got to make that hard decision for yourself, it's a lot trickier.
Yes.
Because you've got all that personal attachment.
Exactly. I know when I was looking for places to work, I drew on like my family and friends and sought out their opinions and their advice because they were able to kind of give me a perspective that was a little bit more removed from the situation. That really helped me in the decision making about where do I want to work.
Yeah, absolutely. And the way that you can use this in your daily life with making these hard decisions is that you can just imagine you are giving advice to someone else about that decision. So rather than you thinking about it personally for you and your personal attachment, you can try and think, what would I say to Kira? What would I tell Kira if you were making this decision? You know, if it wasn't me making it personally, what advice would I give to you? And then that can help with these really tricky decisions.
Yep. And another thing that can help us overcome decision fatigue is making decisions when we're feeling good, like when we're feeling our best and when we're in an optimal state of mind.
Yeah. So when we're not super tired or hungry or feeling really like emotional, that's making me think about going to the supermarket when I'm starving.
Yeah.
And suddenly I have like 3 blocks of chocolate and chips and lots of
all the yummy food.
Yeah. Now this is a good example of offloading those decisions.
Yeah.
I have offloaded my supermarket shopping decision making.
Yeah.
So to someone who goes to the supermarket and doesn't buy anything off the list, only purchases the things that are on the list of shopping, which I do not have the decision-making capacity or self-control to do.
Yeah.
And that's how I've listened to that. There's research also to show that the best time to make decisions is in the morning. And I think this makes logical sense when we think about how decision fatigue works, in that the more and more and more decisions we make increases that decision fatigue. And that's because our brain doesn't have the energy kind of left to make those decisions. And so when we wake up after a night of rest and it's, you know, we haven't had a whole day worth of decisions, it's obviously a lot easier then to make those decisions and we have more mental energy. So the morning is a time when we're most accurate and thoughtful in our decision making, and we tend to be a bit more cautious or meticulous around making our decisions. And so putting the harder decisions to make or the more important decisions. So those decisions which have a greater kind of cost or there's more weight hanging on the outcome of your decision,
Yeah.
putting those in the morning rather than putting them later in the afternoon. And we can think back to the example of the judges making those calls on parole, like
Yes.
how that decision changed across the day.
Yeah.
And that if we put things when we're feeling fresher, then we're more likely to make a good decision.
Yeah. So my key takeaway from this is that if I ever find myself in court, ideally I will have a morning court hearing.
Yes, absolutely. I hope for both of our sakes, Kira, that you don't find yourself
Doesn't happen.
but you never know, so we'll keep it in mind.
Moving on. Another thing that can be really helpful with overcoming decision fatigue is to practice gratitude for kind of like the decisions we make and stop dwelling on our decisions and stop second guessing ourselves and just being a bit more confident and backing the choices that we have made. So rather than getting stuck and rehashing the choices and kind of ruminating on did I make the wrong one or not, and chasing the perfect option, just being like really grateful with the option that we did make, knowing that we made that decision at a point of time with the knowledge we had, with the guidance we had, and it was the right decision for us in that moment.
Yeah, and once you've made that decision, like moving on from it as
Yeah.
well. So, the perfectionism and second guessing and all of that obviously then wastes more energy and you've already made that decision's already made. So kind of trying to accept it and move past it onto the next decision.
Yeah, it reminds me of this quote that I stumbled across a few years ago when I was trying to make some big life decisions. And when I say big life decisions, I think it was like related to like career and kind of what I wanted to pursue.
Yeah.
And the quote was, I did try to research it for this episode, but I couldn't find it word for word. It was something along the lines of, how do you know when you've made the right decision? You don't, but make that decision right for you.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like just pick an option
Yeah.
and then make that option right for you and make that
Yes.
option work for you
Yeah.
rather than dwelling on, oh, what option do I make?
Yeah. So I think I have seen the same thing and probably similar with like picking if I've had kind of multiple jobs that I was trying to pick from and then
Yeah.
choosing one. It's like you make the choice right.
Yes.
Yeah. Like you then make the choice that you've made right because it's the one you've picked and kind of accepting that it is the right choice.
Yes.
And it's goes back also to, the grass is always greener on the other
Yes.
side. Like even if you've picked the choice, all of that dwelling about what might have been is really taking up a lot of mental energy and space. Whereas, you've made that decision and then being kind of comfortable and moving with it. Yeah. And Barry Schwartz again.
Our go-to researcher.
I'm fangirls of Barry Schwartz's episode. But that video is so good.
It is good.
Yeah. So there is research around these maximizers and satisficers kind of concept. And maximizers is when you want the absolute best or you want to exhaust every option. So this leads to like anxiety and regret.
Yeah.
So a maximizer would, if we're thinking about even a choice of picking what pan to buy, right? Yeah, would think about every single possible option, exhaust every option. And then even when they make that choice, it can lead to this anxiety and regret because you're not sure that it's the perfect or the right one. Whereas a satisficer will settle for good enough.
Yeah.
So once the criteria are met, so, there's like a particular thing they want to meet within the decision, they will be happy with what is good enough to meet those criteria and they tend to be happier with the decision. So it's like not sweating the small stuff, especially for these little decisions that don't have a huge cost. So what you're going to pick to eat for dinner, what you're going to watch on TV, like not letting those decisions have to be the absolute best, but let them be good enough and move on. And of course, there's more time you want to spend on those bigger life decisions, but being being kind of easy and breezy about the small decisions and not spending so much time analyzing like every possible option and like researching every possible choice to pick for something that is maybe doesn't have that much impact when you choose.
Yes, exactly. So that brings us to the end of the research for today's episode.
Yeah, we've spoken about so much.
A lot of Barry
decisions.
Schwartz.
A lot of Barry Schwartz. Love him. But we've talked about how there are just so many more decisions to make every single day, and there are so many more choices than ever. So it's understandable why we are feeling this increase in decision fatigue, but there are heaps of things that we can do to reduce that as well. Like we spoke about kind of offloading our choices sometimes, let someone else make the decision.
Yeah.
Just kind of setting up routines, automating the things that we can, and being happy with kind of good enough, not second guessing our choices.
Exactly. As always, the research from today's episode will be available in the show notes. We hope that you have enjoyed the episode. And if you've made it this far, we would really appreciate giving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, depending on what you're listening to. That really helps us grow.
Yes, and a following on YouTube as well.
Yes.
If you want to watch us, you can jump on there. The full video version is always on YouTube, and
we're on Instagram and on TikTok. We've started to post a bit more on TikTok. So finding our feet there.
Yeah, and you can find us at This Might Help Podcast on all of those socials.
Yeah.
And like we mentioned, everything else will be in the show notes. And if you need further support, please get in touch with a healthcare professional. And those further helplines are also in the show notes. That's us for episode 11.